Starts.
So thank you very much for inviting me today. I very much appreciate it. My name is Andrew Rader. I am an attorney in Florida, and I handle IVF litigation cases statewide and in other states. I practice in my own firm called Rader Law Group, and we are very happy to be here today. And so we ask those of you who are on your IVF journey to take a deep breath, be proud that you're here. You've made it here to this webinar, and we are delighted that you're here. And whether you are starting you're just beginning to explore IVF, or you're knee deep in the process, and or just here to gathering some information, you belong here, so I'm honored to be with you. So, as I said, my name is Andrew Rader. I am a board certified civil trial lawyer. I'm one of less than 1% of Florida lawyers who is board certified in civil trial law. And I work with individuals and families navigating fertility challenges, especially when things don't go exactly as planned. I've had the privilege of helping people protect their rights and their futures during what is often the most emotional chapter of their lives. I began my career as a public defender in the Bronx. I did that for 10 years, and I spent pretty much every day of my life in court. And so I developed a very solid foundation in courtroom practice. I'm married. My wife is a retired physician, and I have a daughter, Hannah, who is a UF graduate, University of Florida, and she's an aspiring writer and artist in Brooklyn. And my son Spencer is a West Point graduate who served in the Army and retired as a captain and is now studying to be an electrician. So we are thrilled. We are thrilled to be here, and my family. And I can tell you that my children are the pride of my life, and yours will be too. So how did I become involved in this sector? And let me tell you a little bit about how this started. I am historically um, a serious personal injury and medical malpractice attorney. But a few years ago, or a couple of years ago, I had a client come to me who had decided to freeze 4 embryos back in 2018. In 2008, at that time, she realized or learned that one of those embryos was non-viable. So she gave permission for that one embryo of the four to be destroyed. When she went to implant her remaining embryos in 2022, she learned that back in 2022, all four had been destroyed. Every single one of her embryos was gone. Someone at the IVF clinic had mistakenly destroyed all of her embryos. And in Florida, there was no legal remedy for this kind of thing. You couldn't get emotional damages for the destruction of an embryo. And the reason was that you generally cannot get emotional damages for the destruction of property, and embryos are considered property. But I fought for them tenaciously, and I convinced a judge to allow for emotional damages. That was the first in the state of Florida, and I'm very proud of that accomplishment because we set a powerful precedent for families that unfortunately find themselves in a similar situation. So that at the trial level is the law in Florida right now. So you can get emotional damages for the first time. But this is not about, this talk is not so much about the things that can go wrong. And I'm not here trying to dissuade you from exploring or beginning an IVF journey. But I do want to offer you some tools and some language and some confidence so that you can make informed choices as you build your future family. So let's get started. The first thing you need to know is something that you may be surprised to learn. And that is that in the United States, IVF is largely unregulated, completely unregulated. It sounds shocking, but it's true. There are two professional organizations that you want your IVF clinic to be a part of. One of them is called SART, which is a Society of Assisted Reproductive Technology. The other one is the ASRM, which is the American Society for Reproductive Medicine. Both of those organizations offer policies and data and statistics, but believe it or not, clinics and doctors are not required to be members of these organizations. In fact, their labs don't even have to be accredited. So while these organizations are doing incredible things medically, they are there are not the checks and balances most of us assume are in place. And we've all heard some scary stories like the one I just told, embryos being destroyed, eggs being destroyed. I have cases where eggs are implanted in the wrong surrogate or in the wrong woman. That happens. But again, I'm not here to discourage you from moving forward. IVF offers you hope and the possibility to have families for people who thought that parenthood was out of reach. But knowledge is power. So if you have a pen and pencil, take it out because we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about some questions and some that you should ask your doctor, your clinic, and even the laboratory. And you say, what about the laboratory? Why the laboratory? Because the lab technician, not your doctor, will be grading, freezing, thawing, and prepping your embryos. And you have every right to know how they're doing that and what protocols are in place and how errors are being prevented. So here are some of the questions that you should be asking of the clinic. Are they registered with SART and with the ASRM? We absolutely want a yes. And the reason is that these organizations tend to have better records, and they tend to follow ethical practices and procedures more closely. And you want to ask them about success rates that you see on the clinic's website. For example, when they advertise 96% success rate, what does that really mean? You can go to the SART website, if they're a member, you'll find a simple clinical summary report. And this is such a report. This is available to anyone who wants to see it. I know you can't see it on the Zoom, but this is one of many pages. And you can actually look at their statistics. Now, you have to take them with a grain of salt because they are self-reported and they are not audited. But at least you have something to go forward with to get some thought about it. So you can print out the report and ask your doctor what percentage of eggs fertilize at their labs. And most importantly, ask about statistics based on age. You want to make sure that you're getting accurate statistics, not for the whole clinic, but for your particular medical situation. You want to ask about live birth rates, pregnancy rates, and implantation rates. Ask what percentage of embryos reach day 5 or 6, the blastocyst stage, in their lab. A good lab should have a 50% or higher blastocyst rate. What's the average number of cycles before successful implantation? Of these, how many go on to full-time pregnancies? And if they aren't willing and open to discuss these facts with you, this is a red flag that you should be careful of. There are questions that you should ask of your doctor. First and foremost, is your doctor board certified in REI? REI is reproductive endocrinology and infertility. The reason you want your doctor to be board certified in REI is that not only is your doctor board certified in obstetrics and gynecology, but in addition, he or she has gone through an additional 3-year fellowship that specializes in hormonal disorders, fertility preservation, IVF and other assisted reproductive technologies, reproductive surgery, and genetic testing and counseling. Ask them how they customize their treatments for their patients. No one wants to feel like they're in a one-size-fits-all, and you want to make sure that your treatment is going to be specialized to you. Are treatments tailored to each patient based on medical history? If you need changes in your treatment, are the doctors willing to be flexible and accommodate your needs? If you walk into a clinic or any doctor's office and you see a sign that says, this doctor has decided not to carry medical malpractice insurance, I suggest you walk out. Doctors can cause serious injuries, and like everyone else, they have to be prepared to pay for injuries that they cause. The last and most important question that you should be asking is something that may surprise you. But this question that I'm about to tell you forces clinics to consider your medical history, age, and fertility factors instead of treating you like a number. If the clinic doesn't respond well to this question, they may not be operating in an honest and ethical manner, which isn't something that you want to be involved in. It would also help you avoid unnecessary procedures and side effects. So what is the question that I am suggesting you ask? Ask about the scenarios where IVF is not right for you and why they would not recommend IVF for you. This allows you to set realistic expectations early on. It allows you to consider alternatives to IVF, such as egg donation or surrogacy. And these are great options. But no matter what type of fertility treatments you choose, it's always best to consult with a lawyer. The next area that you want to look into is the storage of embryos. You need to have you have the right to have a thorough understanding of what happens during the entire process, in short and long term. So let's look at let's look at some of the questions that you're going to be asking of the storage facility. What are the policies and procedures to make sure the embryos remain safe? The clinic should talk about alarm systems, secure labeling, and daily quality checks to make sure the equipment doesn't malfunction. Is there backup power source in case of electricity failure? I live in Florida, where hurricanes and storms are common. If the embryos are lost during a power outage and the clinic has no backup plan, that could show failure to provide a safe standard of care. And by the way, backup electricity is not required of these facilities. Ask about how embryos are identified and kept separated from others. You want to hear that the clinic uses electronic tracking, double witnessing, and barcodes. The next thing you want to talk about is what happens when you have embryos that are not viable, or what happens if your life plans change. In this situation, the key word is consent. Your IVF clinic is legally obligated to provide you with cryopreservation consent form detailing exactly what happens to your embryos depending on various scenarios. For example, you don't want to use it. You separate for your partner, or one of you passes away. What happens in those situations? This is where it's essential to have an expert attorney in the IVF space review the contracts. There are forms often contain ambiguous language that can leave you and your family in jeopardy. A lawyer can advise you to whether the contract can be amended at a later date. I will tell you that right now, I have a surrogacy case where an embryo was implanted in the wrong surrogate. This is a contract that was signed in Florida. And what the parents didn't realize was that contract had a Mexico City venue clause. That means that if you wanted to sue the facility for placing an embryo in the wrong surrogate, as they did, they had to sue in Mexico City, and they were limited to $25,000. We're going to fight that case, but it's something that a lawyer would have picked up on early. And we need to know what's going to happen, as I said, if you change your mind. Maybe your views have changed on how you'd like to dispose of unused embryos. Instead of destroying them, maybe you want to give them to a company who can put them up for adoption. Maybe you have frozen eggs, but there have been a change of heart regarding who will be providing the sperm. When it comes to IVF, the financial considerations are also very important. And you need to understand those questions as well. So here are some questions you should ask about that. When it comes to embryo storage, most clinics charge an annual fee, but prices can vary. Ask how they're billed. Do they bill monthly, annually, upfront? What happens if you miss a payment? Is there a grace period if you miss a payment? Or will the clinic discard the embryos? Now, I've spent some time discussing these things, but there is one thing that you should be asking, and there is a set of people that you should be asking, and that is other people who are going through this. Go to a support group. If you're at the clinic and you're in the waiting room, talk to the other people in the clinic. The person next to you may have gone through a round of IVF or experienced something that you're nervous about. This journey can feel very isolating, and I have clients who feel that way. And it's important to realize that you are part of a community. And maybe most importantly, trust your gut. If something feels off, you deserve to feel safe and supported. And also, let's be honest about some of the realities that people face. Access to care is not equal. Some communities, especially Black women, LGBTQ plus individuals, and single parents may face greater challenges navigating the system. And those challenges can be legal, financial, or even emotional. It's so important to understand your rights because knowing your rights helps protect your dream. Now, I hope that you are successful. I hope that you have a lovely family. I'm sure you will. It may take a little while, but you'll get there. So I urge you to continue with this and just work this process as you would. We here at Rader Law Group are your resource. Come find us. We'd love to chat, answer questions, or even just hear your story. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Andrew. And I know you've got to go, but if anyone has questions, I will send them to you.
Thank you so much.
I now have Beverly next, and Beverly has written a book. Andrew, you would be interested in it, but I'll let you stay as long as you can.
Oh, I wish I could stay longer, but unfortunately I can't. I have to
I,
get to a deposition, but thank you so much.
I do understand. So, Dr. Beverly has written a book about nobody else's business. It's a story about what happens when two prominent anti choice politicians face accidental pregnancies in their own family. Dr. Beverly, please introduce yourself to us. And I'm going to stop recording and then I'll bring you on in a minute. Thank you for watching Brightside, discoverbrightside.com, and please subscribe to our channel. Write us a comment if you're watching this on Facebook or Instagram, and if you have a question for attorney Andrew. Thank you for watching, Andrew. That was wonderful.